Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and to day 27 of our yoga challenge. So today we are getting all into our hip flexors. So this practice is going to be a little bit intense. It's going to be really awesome as well. I am going to suggest that you have a towel or some sort of soft surface to use for your knees. They will thank you. I'm going to use a towel if you've got a foamy block of some kind. And then also something to sit on. So either a pillow or a block, something a little low to the ground would be great. So those two things, if you have them available, and then just a little bit of space to move. And let's get started. All right, you guys, so we're gonna be doing a few lunges today. So if you've got something to sit on, just move it to the side. We'll use that later. And if you've got a towel or foamy block or something soft to put under your knee, let's start with the left knee down for our lunge and our right foot forwards. So bring your right foot forwards. You can bring your towel under your knee, under your left knee, to keep it nice and happy. And then let's start to walk our right foot forward. So I want you to bring your hands to the floor, walking the right foot forwards just enough so that it's underneath your front knee and that you're starting to feel the hip flexor on that left hip. So let's keep our chest down, and you might be able to just think about encouraging your hips forwards and down. And as you just kind of encourage them forwards and down a little bit, just a little small micro movement, you might find that left hip flexor a whole lot more. So it's just a very small movement, sending the hips forwards, and you can kind of send them back and forwards, or you can just keep sending them forwards. And relax your shoulders. And we're trying to find that left hip flexor, the top of that left quad. And just gently encouraging those hips forwards. Nice job, you guys. All right, take an inhale here. And as you exhale, just send your hips back just a little bit to release the stretch that you were getting through that hip flexor. Just release it. Nice. Again, this practice is all about those hip flexors, so feel free to take a break anytime, but we're going to send those hips forwards again, finding that hip flexor, that left hip flexor, and then I want you to heel toe your right foot over to the right side of your mat. Turn the toes out a little bit and just move your hands to the inside of your foot, our lizard. And then the same thing, you're going to start to feel some love to that right side as well. But let's think about the left hip flexor. Think about encouraging the hips forwards and down. And you might move a little bit, or you might be still. Nice job, you guys. And I know that right side does want to take all the stretch away from that left hip, but try not to let it. Send those hips forwards and down. Nice, you guys. And then let's send the hips back a little bit here. And you can start to heel toe your foot back to the middle of your mat. And we're just going to regroup here. So send your hips back. Give that hip flexor a nice big break. And I actually want you to bring your right foot closer to you. We're going to set up a different kind of lunge here. So our knee is going to come past our big toe. So our hands are going to stay on the floor. And our knee is going to come past our big toe. So oftentimes I use this lunge variation to stretch the back of this calf and this front ankle. And you're going to get a little bit of that for sure. But I want you to think about the left hip flexor while we are here. So I'm just going to scooch my foamy back a little bit. So send the knee past the big toe. Find your balance here. And then I want you to tuck your back toes. Lift your knee and just kind of slide your knee back a little bit. You might have to adjust that foamy if your knee comes back behind that foamy. But then untuck those toes And just think about encouraging the hips down and forwards. And you might not be able to tell, but I'm just kind of shimmying my back foot a little further back to create even more length through my hip flexor. And this one's a little weird, so you might have to play with it a little bit. You're just thinking about bringing your left knee a little bit further back behind you to lengthen that left hip flexor. And the only difference here is our knees past our big toe for this lunge. So you might be getting that added ankle stretch. Nice, you guys. All right, so a little weird with that one. Maybe you found it, maybe you didn't. Send the hips back though. Release that hip flexor. And then let's just bring that right knee back to the mat. You can take a seat on your heels for a moment. We are going to switch sides. Keep moving through our lunges so you can start to set up your foamy block or your towel on the other side for the right knee. And we'll bring our left foot forwards. So left foot forwards, nothing fancy, just a regular lunge where the front foot is underneath the front knee. Keep your hands down, keep your chest down. Walking that foot forward so it stays underneath your front knee, but so that you send the hips forwards a little more and you find that hip flexor. And maybe rocking just back and forth, just ever so slightly. Or maybe just staying forwards in that hip flexor stretch the whole time. Just notice where you feel anything at all, any sensations. Awesome job, you guys. Start to send your hips back. Give that hip flexor the break it deserves. And when you feel good, you can start to bring the hips back forward. So let's try to find the hip flexor again before we move the foot over to the left side. Send those hips forwards, and then you can start to heel toe the foot over to the left. A little lizard here, but don't let that left leg take all of the stretch. Let it share with that right hip flexor. Sink those hips forwards. Maybe moving just a little bit here. Awesome, you guys. And then let's start to slowly heel toe our foot back to the middle. You can start to send the hips back a little bit if they want to go back and out of that hip flexor stretch. And then we're just going to be sliding this left foot a little bit closer in. Maybe backing the towel up just a little bit now if you know it's going to be moving on you. And then send that knee past your big toe. Find your balance. Keep your chest low. Hands on the floor. Send that knee past the big toe. And then if you feel that right hip flexor, you can stay. If you don't, though, tuck those back toes and try to encourage the knee further back. And then maybe untuck those toes and you could keep adding a little shimmy of that back leg. Again, trying to find that right hip and getting an added bonus of whatever you get for that left leg and ankle. Nice, you guys. Play with it. Take your time. Awesome work. Nice and slow. Let's just start to send our hips backwards. You can bring the left knee down towards the mat. You guys, I hope that you're feeling the love through those hip flexors. I sure am. Again, sometimes it's all about playing with it, moving just small movements to the side, forwards and back, and it can be a huge game changer. And then you're like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to feel. So let's move along though. You can move your towel off to the side, and I want you to grab your cushion or your block or something you're able to sit on. Just an option though. So we're going to be keeping our knees together and our feet are going to be coming out to the sides a little bit. So if you can sit between your heels comfortably and your knees don't mind, they're not talking to you, they're okay. You can just sit between your heels and you're going to feel some love through those hip flexors, but sitting on something is just a whole lot nicer for the knees, for the hips. So feel free to sit on something or on a couple things. So while this position is so good for our knees, we're going to think about the hip flexors. So I want you to bring your hands behind you if you're able and just start to lift your chest. Nice, you guys. And then from here, we're just going to start. If you've got the space to do so, you might be staying here. Or you might be bringing your forearms down to the floor. You might be getting a nice stretch for the top of the feet. You might get into your quads. You might feel those hip flexors. Nice job, you guys. Okay, we're going to be coming back out of this one because I do want to do just a little more here. So I want to do one leg at a time. We've done both, but I want to get a little further into the hip flexors, so I want to do one leg at a time. So you can keep the right leg bent and send the left leg out, and you can keep sitting on your cushion, on your block, if you feel like it is where you need to be. I'm going to come off of my block, come a little lower to the ground. So my heel is still on the outside of my hip, just as it was. My right foot is out to the side a little bit, but my left leg is now out long. But the same thing, bring your hands behind you, lift the chest. You can stay here, or you can start to come down onto the forearms. And you might even lay all the way down on your back. And then just think about your shin. Think about encouraging your shin into the mat. Notice where you feel this. You get your hip flexor, you're getting your quad, the top of your foot. You might be able to bend that left leg in just to adjust those hips. I find it helps square those hips. And then just make any little adjustments with the hips, with the legs, and they're probably very small adjustments to maybe get into that right hip flexor. Nice, you guys. So a little something weird as always. We're going to start to lift ourselves back up. You can bring the right leg out. If you need to come all the way up to switch sides, you can come all the way up. But we're going to be sending the right leg out. The left leg will be bending. The heel's on the outside of the hip. Remember, you can be sitting on something. You can be taking it as far as this, lifting the chest, hands behind you for support. A great place to be. Only dropping it down if you've got the space to work with. Just taking a moment to notice where you feel the love. Adjusting the legs in any way, kind of gently rocking the hips a little bit can be that game changer you need to find your hip flexor. Awesome, you guys. Nice and slow. We're going to start to make our way back up, and you can send your left leg out. If you are feeling up for it, we're going to do both legs bent one more time. So you might grab your block and you might sit on it. You might sit between your heels. Feel free to do a forward fold instead if you have had enough, if your knees have had enough, if your hips have had enough. But maybe you're sitting between your heels on a block or not. Maybe you're lifting that chest. Maybe you're melting down onto the forearms or all the way onto your back. Just finding your breath. Softening your shoulders. Awesome work, you guys. If you are down, if your chest is lifted, if you've got both of your legs bent, you can start to come back and come all the way forwards onto your hands and onto your knees. Move nice and slow here. And that pose is really good for the knees as long as there's no pain being felt. Take those hips for a little rock side to side. Awesome job, you guys. And just like that, that is our hip flexor practice. So find a nice comfy seat, or as always, you can lay down and spend a little bit of time in Shavasana. But if you're joining me, close your eyes and bring your hands together in front of your heart. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I can't wait for tomorrow. Namaste.